So this week's discussion is a really interesting one because basically what side you take of it is pretty much life altering. It really determines how you go about life and how you make your decisions and where you lie when it comes to placing responsibility for maybe doing bad things like committing crimes. And I think that it's really interesting because not many people are really black and white, which is something I took away from our discussion. I'm also not. I find myself to be a little bit more in the middle ground because taking one side or the other completely can be kind of intimidating. But I do think it's also really interesting that, especially with the deterministic point of view, that may be a little bit more comforting in the fact that you don't necessarily have to worry so much about the decisions that you make because at the end of the day, it's already been plotted out for you. And basically, the whole whatever happens for a reason thing, which is something that I found myself telling myself all the time, especially in moments of doubt or when things are going wrong and it's scary and I don't know what I'm doing. I'm like, oh, everything happens for a reason, which does lean towards that deterministic point of view. But at the end of the day, I do believe that choices I make do affect things that'll happen later on. And I do think that leaning more towards the deterministic point of view, what Jordan and Claire pointed out is that there are more implications about things such as responsibility and how we would then make decisions. Basically, like if you are going to how much you're going to think about the decisions you make in your life. If you know that everything is already plotted out, already determined, you're not necessarily going to take the time to think about the decisions that you make. May not give them the thought that they need, and therefore you may alter your path in a different way, which is something that people who believe in free will would probably say. The funny thing about this discussion is that it can be really cyclical. Basically, you can talk yourself into one and then talk yourself back out of it into the other point of view. At least that's what I find myself doing. It's complicated. And because of that, I find myself being more in the middle ground because I feel like the holes of one idea kind of are filled in by the other idea. And that will basically tells me that it's got to be something in the middle, which is something we see a lot in psychology, especially in the nature versus nurture argument there. We, at the end of the day, say, hey, it's both. So I think that that's probably something similar here.